situation because of the economic aspect.
Yes.
This person who is the perpetrator is also the provider.
Exactly.
Okay. So now when we say we know who these women are, we know who these girls are, whatever the case, but there's very little, are we saying that there's nothing we can do to remove this girl from this situation or remove this woman from this situation?
We can do something. Number one, we need to look at what actually causes gender-based violence. Number one, like the survivors that we are dealing with, majority of them, when you look at cases that happens to them, it's domestic violence. Okay. We have domestic violence, and sometimes even removing this person from that place, because we are talking about power imbalance. This person has got power over the survivor because he's the key provider. So it becomes a challenge for this person to make the decision. But once they come to our counseling sessions, because we have a counselor, a professional counselor that really supports the survivors to make a formed opinion. So it's very easy for them now to move out. Because right now, we are able to identify what are some of the economic pathways. Maybe the ones who wants to venture, let's say we are talking about a child here. This child, we are able to take her maybe to a safe place, and then we are also able to provide education. Then if it's a woman, we are able to bring her out, she attend the session, and then we also provide seed capital after attending training. We also bring the affirmative action government officers on board. So, because the seed capital that we are giving, it's not that much through action. It's not enough. So we want to link them also with other government credit institution whereby they can access the funds. Because right now we have funds. I'm happy that we even have the Hustle Fund, whereby they can access such funds to improve their economic livelihood. Yes.
Okay. There's something I need to ask. You remove the victim from this environment in which they've been violated. You seek to understand why it is that this violence is the way it is. The violator, what do you do to the violator? What do you do for the violator? Because you remove this victim, some other person will fill that particular space. And if this violator is a serial violator, he will
continue.
Oh, yes, by all means.
Jump on to the next one.
Yes, exactly. And since, from what you've said, I get the impression that the numbers of these issues is on the increase, not on the decrease. So it means these examples of violations are being mirrored elsewhere. So clearly it's a problem, and a big one. From your understanding and from what you have done, what would you say is the common thread that runs through these acts of violence? What brings them about? What makes these people, why do they become perpetrators of this violence?
Okay, what I can say, number one, when you look at the legal frameworks that we have, number one, they are not supporting the survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. And if I can talk about the safe house right now, we don't have government safe house. The safe house that are there that are supposed to support survivors of sexual and gender-based violence, they are private sector. And this private sector, there is a duration that our survivors are supposed to stay there. Remember, these cases are very high, and therefore, they're supposed to be rescued from that perpetrator. Because if this survivor keeps on staying in that household where this perpetrator is, the end result is death. And we've seen even in the media. Most of the cases we've had a high prevalence rate of femicide in the country. So what we want, it's if we can have, right now we are really advocating for comprehensive shelter house. When I talk about comprehensive safe house, is whereby we have a safe house, whereby we have the medical aspect, we have the legal aspect, we have the psychosocial aspect, and we have the economic empowerment aspect. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about whereby a survivor is being rescued from that hostile environment, being kept in a safe place, whereby she's able to access legal aspect under one shelter. Because when you look at scenario right now, you report to the police officer, you share the same experience that you underwent, the traumatic experience. You leave from the police station, you go to the hospital, you narrate the same story. It's like this person is reminding you the ordeal situation that you went through. Every time. And it's not comfortable expressing such experience. You leave the medical aspect, you go to the counselor. You are explaining the same. So you find some of the survivors will say, I am done. You people, you are not helping me, I am done. You go to the to court, you
Tell us again.
the same thing. So what we want, if the government can start implementing a safe house, whereby it is comprehensive, we have the legal aspect. Now, it's like the first contact person maybe might be a medical person. So your files move from one department to another. Then you are also safe in that room, and you are able also to go counseling aspect, the psychosocial support, and then from that they are able to, now if they want to reintegrate you back to the society, already you are going to be, if you can link now the affirmative action fund, a certain percentage can go to the safe house, whereby for those people who wants to venture into business, let's say you don't want to go into that toxic relationship, you are able to be given seed capital, and then you can even decide, I want to change my location. Maybe if you are staying in Nairobi, you can even decide you want to go to Mombasa. So you will be very safe. So those are some of the things that we are really struggling with. And then the other thing is the issue of gender-responsive public services. When I talk about gender-responsive public services, these are some of the services that it is the mandate of the government to ensure that its citizen has. When we are talking about water, because we've seen, people are even, there's what we call sex for water, okay? The water is not there. So what will force, because water is a basic need. So if it's not there, these women are forced to walk long distance to fetch water. And in that process, something can happen, because majority of women wake up even at 3. So what happens at 3? And you find most of the people who goes to fetch water are young girls. So when they walk that odd time of the night, they might experience sexual and gender-based violence, because it is at night, and then after that they're supposed to be in school concentrating. Okay, so it means in terms of even quality education, they will not access quality education, because at that time in the morning they spend almost 3 hours fetching water. They are in class, they are sitting concentrating. Do you think their concentration level will be high? It will be very low, because already part of their energy was exhumed during the morning. Then the other thing that we are looking at is the issue of health, whereby these young girls, even women, can access health. Because right now when you look, we had universal health care. Is it working? And I understand that even Linda Mama has been removed. Yeah. So you find that when Linda Mama has been removed, what happens to these women? Because if they cannot access funds to access basic health rights, so that means they can do anything. And actually the people who have got powers over them, they can really take advantage. So what we want, if we can have a comprehensive shelter house, whereby all the services are inclusive. Then another thing, if we can also introduce standard operating procedures for GBV prevention and response at the police training. Because one of the challenges that we are faced with is that you find that some of the police officers that we have trained, after some time they get transferred. When they get transferred, there are new people who don't even understand the issue of GBV prevention and response. So you also have to use, again, another resources to train these people to understand how to do what? To respond to such cases. Because number one, we are survivor-centered. Because I understand that I was asked about the perpetrator. Ours is survivor-centered. And we also have the laws whereby if you defile or you are the perpetrator, there is a law that has to be to be implemented. But you find that some of these things, even right now today, there is a match to the high judiciary, because there was this action whereby they were saying that for the perpetrator, they can be given community work to do. But remember, we are asking, what about the life of a survivor? This is somebody that she has been violated. She's traumatized. So if it doesn't work at her mental health, it means that we are not going to have a productive, productive country, because majority of women will be lag behind. Because once you've been traumatized, hata ukienda job, utafanya kazi. Hautafanya kazi, because you'll be like, your self-esteem will be low. And that's why you find that sometimes people are really deviating. When you talk about sexual orientation, you don't understand the reason as to why somebody became a lesbian. You don't understand the reason as to why somebody became a gay. But when you look at deep inside, you start interrogating, you'll find maybe this person was abused at the childhood time. So we don't understand. We start judging. Oh, so Winfred is a tomboy, blah, blah, blah. So many things are happening.
You don't get to understand why. Winfred, there are very many things that you've said, and I think it would be important if we look at your program and the impact it has had, and also the information that you've collected from people who have actually used the SMS number 21094, right? So you told us that your partner is ActionAid,
yes.
ActionAid Kenya. And joining us in the conversation is Majani Tyson, who is a Learning and Impact Coordinator at ActionAid Kenya. Good morning, Majani.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us for this conversation as well. Before we take a break, and then you'll tell us more about this particular program, tell us about ActionAid. What does ActionAid do, and how did you start working with the Africa Youth Trust?
Thank you for having me on the show. My name is Majani Tyson, working with ActionAid as a Learning and Impact Coordinator. ActionAid is a global movement of people working together to defeat poverty and secure justice. And we focus more on working with women who are living in poverty and exclusion. And our work is more of securing the rights of women and ensuring that women and girls have a voice right from the family level to the community and at the national level. Currently, we are partnering with the Africa Youth Trust on the Young Urban Women Movement Program, a program that is keen to ensure that young people, especially women, have the right to bodily integrity, and they are securing decent work and economic empowerment. And they also have access to quality sexual and reproductive health rights. And we're happy for the work that Africa Youth Trust has been doing on those front lines. But as you've heard from Winnie, there is quite a lot that is yet to be achieved, and there is a lot of battles to be fought to ensure that we are securing the rights of women.
Okay, let's take a break. Then we'll talk more about what drove you to start working in Nakuru, for example. Why specifically Nakuru? And what kind of numbers are we talking about? How many people have used this number? When you dig deeper, what do you establish from the community? And then how you use that information then to influence, because you're really calling on policy shifts and a lot of work that's been done. What kind of data do you have? It's 8:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, commemorating 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And our guests this morning are right in those programs. Winfred Okumu is the Deputy Executive Director and Coordinator in the Access to Justice Project, Africa Youth Trust, and Majani Tyson, Learning and Impact Coordinator at ActionAid Kenya. Ndu, please tell the lady and gentlemen about Kiwi Black Shoe Polish and how buying Kiwi Black Shoe Polish can actually help in getting 35,000 worth of school fees.
So Step Up and Shine with Kiwi gives us an opportunity to do just that. And every now and then, Kiwi has been in the business of saying, let's see how we can support young learners around the country, right? So Step Up and Shine with Kiwi, you walk into any of your supermarkets and buy a tin of your black Kiwi polish, and under the lid is a code. You send that, you dial star 459 star 5 hash. You send that code and instantly you win some airtime or some bundles that you can use. I am testifying that it is true. I did it.
Yeah.
And I was able to speak to Siti's cousin for some hours with my airtime. But then doesn't end there. You then get an opportunity to enter into a draw. 36 different winners will win 35,000 shillings every week that goes towards school fees come January 23rd when kids go back to school. Step Up and Shine with Kiwi.
Brilliant, isn't it?
Is one.
Yes.
Very.
Know that the girls will be going to school next year.
Bas. You see? It's 28 minutes to 9. Time for a break. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
This is 00 Direct, woman host, music by women and only women guests.
If COVID could mutate and evolve 6 times over the last 2 years, how many versions of yourself have emerged in the last 2 years?
Do not, and you don't have to give anything to get ahead. All you have to do is give out and show out your talent.
Catch 00 Direct every Saturday from 10 a.m. on SpiceFM.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This is one of the best ways to spend a Saturday.
It's a magical Christmas at Westgate Shopping Mall. Spend 1,000 Kenya shillings and above and stand to win an all-inclusive Mediterranean cruise to the most beautiful cities in Europe. Visit Rome, Venice, Barcelona, and get to bring someone with you. You also have the chance to win once-in-a-lifetime balloon safari over the Masai Mara and a luxury stay at Marangecha Camp, and the opportunity to win 500,000 worth of luxury furniture from Queen Picks. It's magical, and it's all yours to experience simply by shopping at Westgate Shopping Mall.
All right, so sun is up in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 24 today and lows of 16. It's 18 and cloudy in Nakuru, highs of 23 and lows of 13, and we'll see lows of 12. In a rainy Nyeri at 18, it's 18 and raining as well. In Eldoret, highs of 23 and lows of 12. And at 28, the rain is coming down in parts of Mombasa, highs of 32 and lows of 25. We're looking at cloudy conditions in Malindi, highs of 32 and lows of 26. And looking out into a partly cloudy Kisumu, we'll see highs of 27 and lows of 18. It's cloudy as well in Kakamega at 21. It'll go to highs of 26. Let's look out into Kampala. It's sunny at 18, highs of 26, and we'll see highs of 32 in a rainy Dar es Salaam at 27. 16 and mostly cloudy in Johannesburg, highs of 21 and lows of 15, and it's clear in Lagos at 25. It's 24 and sunny in Kinshasa. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 22.
Chilled Spice.
All right, not having too crazy a situation with traffic this morning. Doesn't look too bad. So folks are working on this General Motors junction, parking lot, whatever it is. So still closed for now. Hopefully in the next few days it'll be open so people can get back to the normal business of turning where you should. Other than that, you're going to have to use the bypass and then get out towards Langata Road, or then use Enterprise Road and go the long way to join Nyayo Stadium. Likoni Road, yes, it does have some traffic, and that's coming off of Lunga Lunga, as well as Jogo Road itself. Landy's very busy as you're getting towards that Kamkunji roundabouts. And we're looking at traffic coming off of Pangani today and into the city. Muranga Road is not looking too bad, but you're going to get to Globe and then you're going to slow down some. Kipande Road is doing something today. I don't know what that is all about, but it's really busy at that point as you're getting towards Moy Avenue. Keep an eye on things as Thika Superhighway is still teeming with traffic. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Let's keep things moving this morning.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Kumu and Majani Tyson talking about gender-based violence and the work that Africa Youth Trust is doing. Winfred, you said you are working in the entire Mukuru.
Yes.
Mukuru is big. There's Mukuru Kwanjenga, Mukuru Koruben, Mukuru Kayaba. Is there another Mukuru that I've missed?
Kwanjenga, Kayaba,
Ruben. Yep. So that is a huge part covering a sizable population. About how many people are we talking about?
We're talking about 700.
700,000 people in those three Mukurus.
Yeah. Oh.
Why did you decide to concentrate in Mukuru?
Okay, we've been having a previous project in Mukuru informal sector. Before Access to Justice, we were having Shikan project whereby we were dealing with young girls in GBV prevention and response. So from that project, we realized that there were a lot of cases of sexual and gender-based violence which were going unreported.
So how did you know about them?
Because we were dealing with the young girls living in the informal sector. So during when we were sitting with them in our safe spaces, they were able to start sharing some of the ordeal experiences that they are experiencing at the household setup. So that was the time that from the evaluation, we realized that these cases needs to be attended on, and they were also sharing that they were not comfortable sharing based on the experiences. So we decided that through ActionAid, if we can have an innovative mobile technology whereby they can report such cases. So when I'm talking about 21094, it's something that you don't have, you don't need a data or even a unit for you to report. Once you have a phone, whether it's Mulika Mwizi, you can still do what? You can still send the word help. And then we also encourage them to register.
Free service.
It's free service.
Okay.
So we are also encouraging them to register, because from the 21094, they are able to receive bulk SMS. Like right now, we are in 16 days of activism. They are able to get information regarding SGBV prevention and response even during election time. So it is reporting. You can report at the same time. You can also receive
information.
you can get information based on what is happening. So we
What
decide.
age group are we talking about?
Age group.
Yes.
Provided you've experienced, there is no age limit.
But you are driven by the information that you're getting from
the previous
program.
Yes.
And this is with interaction with young girls in the community.
Yes.
I assume that these were adolescents.
Adolescents, girls. It was from the age of 15 to 25.
Do they have access to mobile phones?
Some have. Some have. Yeah, some have.
Okay.
Because we realize, when it comes to reporting cases of sexual and gender, not from the experiences, they were using police stations to report. But we realized that the environment was not conducive.
Okay.
Because
when you say the environment was not conducive, what do you mean?
When I say environment is not conducive, most of these police officers were causing more damage to the survivors. And again, when you look at most of the police...
How are they causing more damage?
Okay, what they were doing, instead of supporting the survivor, they were asking intimidation questions. Like, for instance, if the case happened maybe at night, they'll be asking like, what were you doing at that particular time of the night? You get it? So, we don't want to justify the action. What we need to do is to support the survivor. Okay. Because even this person was working at night, that one does not justify that you're supposed to.
Does this not point then to a need for the police to be trained in such matters? Because they seem to have a uniform way of dealing with people. Irrespective of what your problem is, they begin by taking the view that it is your problem. So now explain why you brought this problem upon yourself.
So what we normally do, we are not working in silos. We are using, we are working with everyone, working around access to justice. So for the police officers, we are bringing them on board and we are actually training them on SDBV prevention and response. And earlier from my conversation, I shared that these police officers, one of the challenges that we are facing with police officers is the transfer. You train them, then after some time, they are being done what? There is that transfer of police officers. So you find that is a challenge when it comes now to access to justice for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. And one of our recommendations was if standard operating procedures for GBV prevention and response can be introduced in the curriculum for police officers training, so that when they are in their training, they are able to undergo SGBV prevention and response. And then once they've been, now they are assigned, already when they come now to the community level, they already have the information. So our role as CSOs, what we'll be doing is like a refresher course, because things changes with time.
Okay.
I want to go back to this, sorry, Ndu, before you come in, to the issue of use of technology, because it's good, it's innovative. So when you say, let's come up with this platform, 21094, send the word help, and we will then react and help you through it. Number one, so if this is an adolescent and they don't have access to a phone, then what? If this is somebody who has access to a phone, but it's a shared phone, then what? Did you get those kind of concerns from the community that, yes, I'd like to report, but then the phone I share with other people, and if I send help, everybody will know help 21094, well, we'll go on somebody, and then the information that I'm getting back. Number two, how do you get to know the person who has actually called out for help? Because people live in a household of people.
So when I'm talking about 21094, anybody can access it. It's something that we normally popularize in the community where we are working, so that we tell them, first of all, we tell them about the women's right. They need to know what are some of the women's rights, because majority of people do not know, they are not aware about the women's rights that are there. Then after that, we are also sharing about our 21094, whereby how it works. And basically, you can even report on behalf of someone if this person does not have a phone. So what normally happens, we also experience some cases whereby they report, but they don't have a phone. They use somebody else's phone, and when you call back, either the mobile phone is switched off, or you call, somebody will be saying that I didn't use that now. It's not me.
Yeah.
So what we normally do, we give them time. We give them time. So if you call, you realize that the number is not going through, you can even take like 3 days and then you call back. And then we also have working. When we're doing our sensitization, we have our offices, our satellite offices within Mkuru informal sector. We have 2 offices, one in Mkuru kwa Jenga, the other one is in Mkuru kwa Ruben. So we can even have walk-in clients. So if you don't have a phone, you can walk in and then we can support you. You get my point? So we use sensitization in that anybody can report, whether a man. Our priority is women and girls. But that does not mean that if women are also violated, we are not supporting. They also have...
if men are not, if men are being violated.
Yes, if men are being violated, they can also report. Actually, in our Survivors Network group, whereby we bring all, like this year, we have 187 survivors that have reported through our system. Now, the ones that now were either it was a domestic violence, it was rape, defilement, or attempt defilement. So right now we have 187 survivors, whereby we've trained them on economic empowerment. There are others who wants to go back to school, and we've liaised now with the TVET institution within Mkuru informal sector, whereby come next year about 18 are now going to do other short courses, and then the rest we've trained them on economic empowerment, and we are going to give them a seed capital this month. Yes.
Okay.
So it is something that we are not working in silos, and also we are popularizing. We have community forums whereby we call all the stakeholders, even the border guys. We have male champions that are also supporting us in GBV prevention and response. So we bring them on board. We even have, sometimes we also have, it's called a walk within the community whereby we distribute the flyers. We talk even to people at the pool stations. We go to border sheds. We talk to them about GBV prevention and response. So we are bringing everyone on board. But our main priority is women and girls. But that one does not mean that if women have been violated, they cannot use our system and we cannot support them. Yeah.
So for you, Majani, as you see, obviously problem brought and said, look, it needs support, whether that support comes in terms of financial aid, structures for advocacy and learning, whatever it is. So supporting groups like this. Have you seen that there has been an improvement in the situation? So when we say an improvement in the situation, obviously then we're saying, number one, lesser cases of gender-based reported, maybe lesser cases, or then the victims who then have, those who've been victims of gender-based violence, then having been gone through a healing process and then, gotten on their feet. Have you seen that as a result of the support, then we see an improved situation, or are we just where we are dealing with the same numbers?
I think there has been great improvement, especially when it comes to people reporting. Like, people are not silent when it comes to them experiencing gender-based violence. The SMS platform, like, every now and then you'll see a lot of traffic, people sending in their call for help. And I think there's also some increased awareness about GBV because of the reporting. And I would say maybe the challenge is more on the side, like Winnie mentioned, when it comes to the partnership that we have with the authorities or duty bearers like the government. When you report the case, for example, the police, you find they are not in that position to handle the GBV cases. Most of them look at it just like any other case. So they'll just interrogate someone just like it's a criminal case. So the thing that maybe needs to really improved is how our police officers are recruited and also trained. And if they cannot be taken, all of them, for example, in issues to do with handling GBV, there is need to have specialized police officers or have a gender desk at the police station with someone who is very well conversant with how to deal with GBV cases.
Maybe if I can add what Majani is saying, for instance, when we are doing police training, when you're talking about gender issues, normally the way people perceive it, it's women issues, not knowing that it cut across. So when you invite police officers even for our training, you will find that our participants, all of them are female.
So they send the female
They
officers.
send the female officers, go for that training. So we decided now to change our model, whereby now instead of taking trainings now maybe to a hotel, now we do it at the police station, so that we ensure that everyone is included. Because when they look at it that it is a GBV, that's a women issue. It's not supposed to be like that. Again, when you are working on GBV, you can't you are dealing just like in our case, we are dealing with women and girls, but that does not mean that we are not incorporating men in our intervention. Then another thing we can say about this system, it has really helped because women are now reporting the cases like on a daily. And I wanted you people just to try. You just register. You just send the word help, and then it will give you the options. Where are you reporting from? What kind of cases are you reporting? And then from the system, we are also getting other support apart from SGBV. Like during when there was demolition in Nakuru Kwajenga, we realized that there were a lot of cases that were being reported, especially people wanted help, financial support. There are even men who are using our system just to report if there is scholarship that we can provide. But again, if it's outside our jurisdiction, what we do, we refer them. Because we already know some of the referral mechanism within our area of implementation. So we are able to refer appropriately. So it is a system that is working even for our survivors. There are women who came, they could not even express themselves. But through our counselor using other techniques, because she introduced sports activities, so they are able to speak about it. Actually, you'll realize that even apart from, you'll find that maybe the mother reported a case of defilement that happens to a child. Then after the woman has attended our session, you realize that even the woman is undergoing domestic violence, which was not reported. So you find when they come for our counseling session, it is a safe space whereby they open up. They are able to mingle. We even we bring the survivors that have healed, the champions. So they are able to share their story. I went through domestic violence. I made that decision because number one, it is not easy to make that decision. And especially when the perpetrator is an intimate partner. There is that you want to leave, I don't want to leave. Personally, I'm also a survivor of GBV. You see? So the time that I was undergoing domestic violence, it was not easy for me to come out because I was like, now how will the society perceive me? And with Luo culture, you cannot leave your husband. You have to stay there. So there was a time that it took me 1 year.
Ndo is shocked.
You're shocked. Those are cultural dynamics that women face.
Ask her why she's shocked.
So it took me 1 year to leave. And again, now, the time that I was leaving, it was very painful because we fought. And that is the time that I realized I have anger issues. You get it? I had anger issues. So I started doing self-evaluation. What if I stab this man? What? When I stab this man, definitely, because you are defending yourself. You get it? Because the man he overpowered me. So I was like, if I had something, I could have even stabbed him. So that is the time that I made decision. And another thing, I didn't want to be used as a case study. Like you are the person who's supposed to mentor other. Then you go for a session, you have a swollen face. You get it? Now it will be like, Winfred is the one that is mentoring us. Then she's the same person who is experiencing sexual and gender-based violence. Yeah. So what I decided, I had to make that decision. It was not easy, but you have to make it. So, when you share some of these things, and that's why you find, I have a problem with men, they do not share. They are being battered by their wives. Whichever they think, they don't share. And when you don't share, definitely you are also being affected, even in terms of your productivity. So we need to speak up. We need to share some of these things. However much the society will perceive you, you need to speak out. Because
you've brought in a new angle, which we've discussed this before, right? It's gender-based violence, which is including physical, sexual, emotional, and all.
Yes.
How do you deal with those other aspects of emotional abuse? Where, and let me just throw it out here, probably a victim of physical violence is a perpetrator of emotional violence.
Let me laugh.
It rings a bell, doesn't it?
It rings a bell. Okay, so what happens when let me not talk about the survivors, but let me talk of the people who use our system. We deal with that case that has been reported. Because we believe, like I've said, we are client-centered. So we will deal with that particular issue that has been presented. And we ensure that our survivor become part of the survivors network group. So once the counselor sits down with the survivor, she'll be able to pick up the issues that needs to be discussed. So from there, we even have a session whereby these survivors, they bring their intimate partner. And especially when it is a domestic thing. Because domestic, it's very difficult to handle. You will talk to the survivor, the perpetrator will be apprehended. The moment this person is in the cell, atakwambia please tafadhali, naomba tu mwache tu kozienda analipa nyumba. So sometimes it becomes a very challenging to handle domestic cases. It is a challenge.
Winnie, who are the partners you have? You mentioned you have people you work with in collaboration. Who are these? Rather, what do they do?
Okay, we have MSF. MSF normally support us in terms of medical aspects.
Okay.
Then we have SHOFCO. SHOFCO support us when it comes to safe house.
Okay.
Whereby we rescue the survivor because we realize that maybe that environment is very hostile. So we need to rescue the survivor into a safe space.
Okay.
So we have SHOFCO who normally support us. Then we also have Kenya Red Cross. Kenya Red Cross also help us in terms of, MSF help us even in terms of transport. We also provide transport, but also MSF, especially when it's at night and the survivor needs to be taken to the hospital. They have their ambulance on standby, whereby the survivor can now be moved from that area maybe to seek medical attention. Then we also have Makadara Law Court. So we work with Makadara Law Court during our GBV technical working group and even the court users committee, whereby we are able to identify this is a case which has really taken so much time for the survivor to access justice. So we are able to find out what are some of the challenges that this case is really taking time. How comes the process is delaying? So we also have children department that we are bringing on board because when now we are dealing with the issue of children, the children that have been violated, children who are not going to school. So we also bring them on board. So as I've said, we don't work in silos. We even have Wangu Kanja Foundation that is also implementing access to justice. So we are able to bring every partner that is working around access to justice, dealing with survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. And from that technical working group, we are able to pick what are some of the issues that really needs advocacy. The issues that we need to bring the policy makers on board so that we can even have the legal frameworks.
The reason why I asked the question is because when you talk about ensuring that the work you're doing actually has the impact you intended to have, then these partners have, the role that they play, apart from it being definitive, it gives an opportunity to measure it. But having heard what you've said, what the two of you have said, government intervention, perhaps specifically through the law enforcement agency known as the police service, is paramount. This issue of the curriculum that the police have and the inclusion of some of these studies that relates to what you do, how far has it gone and who have you been working with? Because if you have support from the police service, you will go a long way in achieving these goals. But so long as they treat it as, why don't you go back and sort it out? I mean, you bring the problem and they tell you ni mambo ya nyumbani, go and resolve it. And you know very well that you've come there because it can't be resolved nyumbani. So how far has the push to have this included in the police curriculum gone?
We have the National GBV Technical Working Group, whereby even the police officers are involved. But you know, in Kenya, when it comes to development of formulation of policies and even implementation of policies, it becomes a challenge. That one we have to agree with.
Okay, so haijaenda mahali.
Bado iko, but we are really trying to push. We are really trying hard to push so that we can have such policies on place.
You see, police have been here and they've told us they have programs. In fact, they launched a program that would address
Polycare.
Polycare.
Yeah.
Gender-based violence. It's at that level, at the highest level. They've launched it. It's running. The National Council on Administration of Justice has specific focus on gender-based violence. In fact, the Chief Justice was just launching a report the other day, right? How do you work with those as your organization and as ActionAid?
At the moment, we are keen to have the curriculum, the police training curriculum reviewed so that the police are equipped and are in a position to handle gender-based violence cases. And it's a work in progress. There is a lot of advocacy happening. And for now, I think where we are at the moment, we are still in that, establishing and creating awareness on the need for us to have the police have their way of training reviewed and updated, because it's not up to date.
Okay.
Yeah.
At the grassroots level, the chief is also very important.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll attest to that.
Yes.
How also do you work with the national government administration officers?
So during our community forums, we invite them during our community forums. We also community forums and even the trainings, so they are able even to get the information. And once there's a case that maybe it has been handled, we normally call them kangaroo court, which also interferes with the justice for survivors of sexual and violence. And we realize that majority of the people who are fueling kangaroo court was the area chief and even the nyumba kumi, because you find that the perpetrator is somebody who has got money, and now he goes and pay that kesi wacha tu tumalizie tu hapa. So what we realized, we had a meeting with them and told them some of the side effects, because when this person has not accessed justice, definitely this person self-esteem will go down, and even in terms of productivity, that person will not be productive in the society. So we bring them on board.
You work with them?
Yeah, we work with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
We want to thank you very much for joining us today. Winfred Okumu, Deputy Executive Director at Africa Youth Trust, and from ActionAid Kenya, Majani Tyson, Learning and Impact Coordinator. Asanteni sana for all the work that you're doing. Keep doing it. Yeah, never give up. There are people who are actually benefiting from the work that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Keep it
Thank
here
you
for more
having
conversations. Karibuni tena. More conversations coming up in the next hour as we commemorate World Human Rights Day. We want to have a conversation from the human rights angle. Good morning. It's 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is News. I'm Dennis Aseto. The Bungoma County senatorial aspirant on the Ford Kenya ticket of Wafula Akoli continues to lead, followed by Wafula Munyinyi of DAPK. So far, the results of the votes counted by IEBC show that Akoli is leading in all the 7 constituencies. These are the winners expected to be announced today. Akoli is supported by Ford Kenya leader Moses Wetangula, who resigned from the seat after being elected National Assembly Speaker. Mwambu Mabonga of UDA being on the ballot. So ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi raised an issue with a seemingly sibling rivalry within Kenya Kwanza, with the Chief Cabinet Secretary insisting that the seat should have been left solely for Ford Kenya. Wafula Munyinyi of DAPK, a party in Azimio, had complained of electoral malpractice ahead of the by-election, calling on IEBC to punish his competitor. In Kabushai, Wakoli garnered 11,728, Mwambu 2,824, Munyinyi 1,150. In Kandui, Wakoli is leading with 11,423, Mwambu 4,339, and Wamunyinyi 8,159. In Kimilili, Wakoli has garnered 6,341 votes, Mwambu 2,981, and Wamunyinyi 1,231. In Mount Elgon, Wakoli has garnered 5,855, Mwambu 4,993, and Wamunyinyi 573. Results continue to trickle in. We'll update you on the changes as they stream in. Now, all the 10 Nairobi County Executive Committees appointed by Governor Johnson Sakaja await for swearing in into office after being unanimously approved by the Nairobi County Assembly. The Nairobi County Assembly expressed their satisfaction with the nominees after the Committee on Appointments vetted them, with each nominee taking 45 minutes. The Nairobi MCAs asked the CECs to serve the residents diligently. And former Wajir County Woman Representative Fatima Gedi is among 7 nominees who are now waiting to be sworn into office after the National Assembly approved their appointment to join the Commission on Revenue Allocations. Benedict Mwasia Mutiso, Jonas Vincent Kuko, Isabel Nyambura Wayaki, and Hadija Nganyi were nominated from the majority wing. Gedi, George Midiwo and Wilfred Koitamet have been nominated by the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition to join the agency that is tasked with recommending the basis of equitable sharing of revenue raised nationally between the national and the county government. The MPs who had adjourned for a 2-month-long Christmas holiday were recalled for this special sitting. And protests took place at the Milimani High Court even as suspect killer cop Ahmed Rashid failed to appear in court for plea taking. Through his lawyer Dunstan Omari, Rashid says he failed to appear as they were not served with the summons. The court moved the plea to January 26 next year, stating that if he failed to appear, a warrant of arrest would be issued against him. IPOAS had moved to Milimani Court last week to obtain summons against the police officer after the DPP approved body charges against him. Rashid is being investigated for the death of Jamal Mohammed and Mohammed Dahir following a shooting which occurred on March 2017. Here is Omar Rashid's lawyer, Dunstan Omari.
Plea taking for one, Ahmed Rashid, has been deferred to the 26th of January. In between, there is a notice of motion. We filed a petition to challenge this decision. To date, the DPP has not responded to the grounds that we raised. We are determined to pursue justice for Rashid from the High Court to the Supreme Court of this country.
And Kenya's representatives to the 5th East African Legislative Assembly members are expected to undergo a 2-day induction course, albeit inconveniences that they may have been caused by the sudden change of the exercise date. State Department of the East African Community Principal Secretary Abdi Dubat said the ministry proposal was to conduct the induction in early January 2023, but the government feeling was that the members needed to have basic and important information before the swearing in, which will take place on the 19th of December. The PS noted that the government was committed to organizing an in-depth country orientation to share with the members some key issues in which the country would like their support in order to promote Kenya's national strategic interest in the regional body. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
Today's Newswire is powered by Samsung Galaxy Buds 2 Pro. Listen to crisp and clear sounds while on the go.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, so we're looking at traffic. It's really heavy on Landis. It's coming off of Jogo Road and out towards Kamkunji. It's going to slow down some as you're getting into the CBD. Jogo Road, then beyond the train station, not looking too bad. It's really heavy on the Thika Superhighway, at least between Utali at the Drift and then heading out towards Pangani. That's slow. Looking at the Northern Bypass, we're looking at Limuru Road and then out towards this fictional place called Videgua. There's still some traffic there on the Northern Bypass, and then there's also some coming off of Red Hill, and that comes all off of Wayaki Way. All right, so Friday morning, not too bad, but we're looking at some traffic spots. We should be able to get out of those by the time traffic hour comes to a head. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room the only way to start your day.
Good morning. It's 7 after 9. How are you doing? Welcome to the final hour of the Situation Room this week. It's the 9th day of December 2022. We've been talking about how many days? 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. When do they end, Ndu?
Tomorrow,
Tomorrow,
the 10th of December. Well, so tomorrow is the day it all comes to the 16th day.
Yeah, it doesn't mean gender violence will come to an end on the 16th day.
Neither does it mean the fight against gender-based violence comes to an end on the 16th day, but the commemoration of the same does tomorrow.
So it's activism that ends.
This is one of those ends that actually earmarks a beginning, meaning 16 days when this has been the center of conversation. Now, after the 16th day, then let's see how effective those 16 days have been and whether we can actually make lasting strides in this same issue about gender-based violence and how we can diminish its existence to the point of extinction.
Diminish to the point of extinction.
Yes.
Sawa. Now, grab your Samsung Galaxy Tab S8
I am with it.
Ultra.
I am with it.
With the S Pen.
I am even with the S Pen. See?
The S Pen.
I mean, it isn't shaped as an S. It's just called an S Pen.
Okay. From the Galaxy Tab S8, whatever, those things, with an S
S8
Pen.
Ultra.
With
Baba.
an S Pen.
Yes.
Hey. What's the proverb?
Our proverbs the whole of this week, ending today, protests have been from the country of Sierra Leone. Okay? Now, one of our listeners actually happens to come from there. And he asked specifically that beyond simply stating the proverb in the English language, we should also give the equivalent of that proverb in Creole, which is the lingua franca in Sierra Leone. So the English version of it, I will read easily and it will be easy to understand. The Creole version, which I will read, I will stagger through it. Okay? So I require patience. Sir?
Okay.
Will I get patience from you, sir?
We are listening.
All right.
We also will require patience listening to you read it in Creole.
When you raise a leopard, you shouldn't be upset when it eats your goat. Okay? Now, in Creole, this is the final time I'm actually reading it in Creole. I will not read it in Creole again.
Thank God we don't have another hour.
When you men leopard, you know for vex where I they eat you got. Now, I have no clue what that means.
The I you're saying I should be E. If it was in pidgin before, say, as you they keep leopard, make you no vex when you eat your goat.
And you've got to do the tongue, the lips like that.
No, even the posture of the neck, from what I've observed, I have to move at an angle to the left and then point upwards.
He said, where I eat your where E eats your goat.
He eats your goat.
E is like you remove the H and the M from him. When he eats your goat, you remove H and M. You get.
Okay, now, with that kind of
training,
read
please
again.
Try again.
Right. And you stop laughing.
Patience. I've given.
Being patient doesn't mean you don't laugh. Eh?
No,
Okay.
please.
Where you men leopard, you know a vex. Where you said E. E they eat you got. Right.
Okay.
That's it. I am not doing that again.
Praise Jesus. Hey. Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
I'm done.
Well done.
Thank you.
That lepet of yours is it T-O-D?
Yeah.
Lepet.
Lepet.
Brother, I know you're referring to mother tongue influence. I know
It's
I come
lepet.
from... It's lepet.
For
Yes.
leopard.
Yes.
Okay.
So you can see similarities. Eh?
Clear.
People. Same thing.
Lepet.
Yes, leopard.
Protas Sende is our guest for the next 1 hour. Protas is the chairman of the International Commission of Jurists Kenya chapter. Good morning, Protas.
Good morning.
Karibu sana to Kenya's biggest conversation,
Thank
the
you.
Situation Room.
Thank you.
Welcome to the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Okay. Thank you. I am here.
What is it?
I was checking
If it's actually
temperature.
hot.
You can't leave.
Okay.
Once you come in,
Yes.
Lepet is at the door. Can't leave.
Happy to be here.
Tell us about ICJ Kenya.
Yeah. ICJ Kenya is first stands for International Commission of Jurists. It's a membership-based organization formed in 1959, and it is based on the International Commission of Jurists, which is based in Geneva, Switzerland. But it's an autonomous organization, ICJ Kenya. It's the only autonomous branch of ICJ worldwide. And ICJ is main objectives is to promote human rights, and that is under 4 pillars. One is democratic governance and rule of law. Then we have the human rights itself. We have economic justice, and then institutional well-being. That's how we do. Yes.
So one of the things that you do is to promote human rights.
Yes.
Now, you know, when you talk about human rights, people come up with human rights from various angles, okay?
Yes.
So in that decade of the 80s and then into the 90s and
Yes.
then into 2000,
Yes.
human rights was going hand in hand with political agitation, change of government and all, right?
Yes.
Organizations such as ICJ, such as the Kenya Human Rights Commission, were out there agitating for change of governance and all.
Yes.
Is that human rights? How do you define human rights? What is human rights?
Human rights is where you have everybody, regardless of their stand, their belief, their religion, their race, their color, enjoying the same kind of treatment or rights that any human being should get. So that is what I would put it in a nutshell. Yes.
What would you say if you were to do, I mean, oftentimes when we talk about certain things, it's then necessary for us to look at the big picture,
Yes.
you know, to understand what the status of things is at the moment. It seems sometimes a buzzword that we like to throw at things, or, you know, we're not defending human rights, or yes, we actually are defending human rights, or, you know, a country that can be great with its economy and development then also is, you know, scoring under when it comes to its human rights profile. All right.
Yes.
Let's look at Kenya.
Yes.
Specifically, and even as we start to celebrate this tomorrow or to commemorate the day,
Yes.
what would you say the footprint of representation of justice for human rights or injustice for human rights? What does it look like for Kenya?
Before I go into that, there's something you've just mentioned, the International Human Rights Day. I'm sure you have already mentioned that it's we are celebrating it tomorrow. And just for information, the reason it is celebrated on 10th of December, that's the day that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was actually passed. And when you look at it from the Kenyan perspective, over the years, what we have been looking at as injustice and what you're fighting for is not the same. There's a time when certain freedoms or certain rights were not available. And through those years, you mentioned the 80s and the 90s, the human rights defenders, I would call them as such, which ICJ is one of them, were fighting then for freedom of association, freedom of information, the arbitrary arrests, and fight for justice for people who are accused of different offences. There are times you'd find there was no proper follow on the rule of law. So if somebody is accused of something, sometimes when it is not even an actual offence, there would be some sort of summary justice which would not follow the rule of law. Come to the new millennium 2000, there is a change in terms of how governance was in the country. We came to multi-party era, and then that space changed a bit. And now we are up to the 2010. There was a fight for change of the constitution, which we had since independence. And there are more rights that came with that new constitution. So right now where we are, there are certain rights, human rights, which we enjoy, which were not there. But I would say we are not out of the woods, because there are still issues that we need to address. And which ICJ Kenya is actively involved in following up. And one of the key ones I would mention probably is, which is live, I think, in public domain, extrajudicial killings. There's also access to information, which I must say ICJ Kenya was at the forefront in fighting for the passing of the Act, Access to Information Act in 2016. That is something ICJ had really fought for over 10 years. Yes.
Chapter 4 of the Constitution.
Yes.
People said, Chapter 4 of Kenya's Constitution is a case study on constitutionalism and constitution making globally.
Yes.
It talks about Bill of Rights,
yes,
and then goes down to break down those rights. Very many of them. Right to, let me read some. Right to life, equality, yes, and freedom from discrimination, human dignity, freedom and security of the person. You've talked about freedom of the media, expression, access to information, association, assembly, all those many rights. And then some of them are said to be automatic rights. Some of them are said to be rights that you shall realize progressively.
Yes.
How do you break those down? I mean, which ones are these that are to be realized progressively, and how progressive is this progression? It's been 10 years down the road. Should we be enjoying like 80% or 90% of the rights that are guaranteed in the Constitution?
Yes, I agree with you. There are some which, as just being a human being, you should enjoy. The right to life, that is there. We do enjoy that in Kenya, but as I've mentioned in my previous statement, there are times when you find life is taken arbitrarily, and usually it is by state or state actors, sometimes security forces. The issue of extrajudicial killings, that is something that we still need to work on. Right to life should be not something that you need to fight for. It should come automatically, in my view. The others you've mentioned, freedom to associate, freedom of speech. As I've said, over the years, there's been tremendous development. We're able to say things which we could not say before. But we still need to guard that space and agitate for more. It should not be that because you have expressed your views and they're seen to not be favorable to particular entities or the state, then you should be oppressed. Everyone should have that freedom. There's a freedom of the media, and I think that is also something that is has progressed over the years. We have had some dark faces, and I think even after we got multi-party democracy and there was a new era when NA came into power. we still had some dark episodes when media was attacked, and in my view, that should not be at this stage. We have had instances where journalists have also been attacked, as recent as maybe a month or two back. In my view, that should also not be happening now. The ones which would say progressive, there's the inclusivity aspect. We have had this agitation of women being included, or the gender, two-third gender rule. You'd extrapolate it to rights, gender rights. That was supposed to be progressive. Of course, over the years, because of different personal partisan interests, it has taken some time to achieve that. But I'm happy to see that there's some progress in that, and some institutions now deliberately make sure that the two-third gender rule is followed. So that's amongst the progressive ones, yes.
When you say progressive, okay, on the gender one, there was even a division in the Supreme Court on whether this should be a progressive right or a traumatic right. Of course, we know Chief Justice Emeritus Professor William Mutunga said progressive what should be immediate, and the other judges disagreed. But how, when you say progressive, back to that question, should we have a timeline for by when should this be progressive? Should there be a sunset clause? Yes, these are progressive rights, but by this time we should have achieved this.
Yes.
And what is that? What is that timeline?
I agree with you. I actually think there should be a timeline, and in my view, from 2010, 10 years was sufficient time. We have had we had the first general election 2013 after the new constitution.
Yeah.
And I think with that regime, there should have been a push towards achievement of that. So by 2017, in my view, we should have been there or almost there. So 10 years from 2010 should have been. So right now, I would say probably we are behind schedule. In my view.
When you say there, what would it look like? How would we know we've arrived? What do we need to see so that when I look out at the window, I say, okay, see, we have achieved it. We are there.
When you look at our institutions and you don't start questioning why we have one gender overwhelming, especially public institutions, you find that 90% or 100% is from one gender, where you find somebody has to run to court to tell the court that, look, this list that has been provided is more than two-thirds. When we don't see that at all, then no, we have reached.
I would have been of the opinion that the fact that people run to court is there because the frequency with which people go to court, some of the court rulings, the number of times the government itself has been censured, I would think that this is what now would herald that new beginning. Because even in countries where the there has been reached, human nature tends to go against some of these norms that we would like to idealize. And the fact that there's an understanding that this is not a fight that actually, you never actually come to an end. You're always fighting new fronts. Again, I would have assumed that that would have been the there, meaning the fact that that space has been opened and this can happen.
Yes.
The pushback is always there, and it's a constant.
Actually, very true. I think it's something else forgot to mention, the freedoms we have in the judiciary, that you can go to court and you can get an order against the government of the day, is actually something to celebrate. There's a time when that will not be there. But I agree with you. When we get to that stage where you can go to court and the court agrees with you and says, yes, there's been a violation here, this needs to be corrected. It is true. And I'm happy to say that as ICJ Kenya, we have worked with the judiciary. One of our pillars on democratic governance and rule of law One of them is strengthening the judiciary within Kenya and the region. We actually partner with the Magistrates and Judges Association in Kenya and also the Region 1. And I must say that even our members, some of them are drawn from the bench. And having a space where the courts can express themselves independently is a key thing, yes.
There's Article 43,
yes,
the economic and social rights. Are those progressive rights or are those automatic rights? This is right to accessing food, right to accessing the highest attainable standards of health, accessible and adequate housing, freedom from hunger, having adequate food of acceptable quality, clean and safe water and adequate quantities. Are those progressive?
There are those which are basic, which should be automatic. I think that one of food, water should be basic. As citizens, we have a contract with our government, and we have elected the government. In turn, the government is supposed to provide for the citizens food, water, that should be basic. Health should also be there. But I know there is a push for universal health care. Maybe that may be progressive to achieve the universal health care. And I think that one should also have a timeline. We should also look at that.
Okay. Now, in the absence of these rights being upheld, so there's a contract between a government and its people that certain rights will be upheld. Now, that right comes alive through the provision of certain things. Now, in the absence of this provision, in the absence of this, can you say upholdness? In absence,
okay.
This is a safe space. We can make up things. After all, leopard is leopard. So, in the absence, what then is the course of action? It doesn't happen. People are hungry. There's no clean water. There is no 1, 2, 3. What recourse then do people take when human rights are being abrogated, intentionally or otherwise?
I think we should have actually agitation and interventions, probably lobbying, and put government on the spot, because this should be highlighted, and government should be told that where we are now as a country, as an economy, we should not be having this group of people going without food, going without water. And there are various interventions. There's one of even probably going to court, but I believe that the lobbying and putting the government institutions, maybe direct engagement with the relevant institutions in government should actually be happening, and the government needs to address that and say what they're doing to ensure that everyone has food and water.
Let's take a break at 9:30. We're talking about human rights and the journey of human rights in Kenya ahead of tomorrow's Human Rights Day 2022, the 10th of December 2022. As we commemorate that, we have the chairman of the International Commission of Jurists Kenya chapter, Protest Saende, here with us in the studio. Protest, you know about Kilifi County, of course.
Yes, I do.
You've been to Kilifi County, of course.
I have.
Have you been to Vipingo?
I have been.
You've been to Vipingo?
Yes.
Okay. Have you heard of the Centum development in Vipingo development by Centum Real Estate?
Yes, I have.
But are you among those that have purchased the first 500 units?
No.
Okay. You should be among those that purchased the second phase of those houses. They've done the first 500, handed over to their owners. The second is actually now ongoing. So they're doing the apartments, studios, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, and they're doing the villas, the 3 bedroom villas with DSQ. And the 3-bedroom villas, of course, they are arranged in estates. Very nice community. You've got access to a swimming pool, children play areas. You have water. They have put up an entire desalination facility, getting water from the Indian Ocean, which means you have an ending supply of clean water, good roads, access to the Vipingo airport, airstrip rather, flights daily to Nairobi and back. So this is a good investment for either a holiday home, a coastal home, or as an investment which gives you income. So you'll talk to them, we'll give you their numbers. Yes? You talk to Centum Real Estate about this, or you can just text the word Vipingo to 22365. That's Vipingo. Text to 22365. They get back to you with all the information on how you can start this journey towards owning a piece of property in Vipingo. You've been there, you know how good it is. Bas. 27 minutes to 10. Let's take a break. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
London Mulwa DJ Absolute. When the gang is together,
got the sugar, got the spice.
Yorada.
Yes.
I have missed you like hot hamburgers. Yeah?
Like hot hamburgers.
You know, bad boys give more money than you can count.
Hey, bad boys give more money than you can count. If it's fun, it's funky, it's fresh, you're definitely going to catch it here. I don't know what you do every day from 11 a.m. to 3 o'clock, but if I were you, I'd tune in to
Sugar and Spice only on 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So if you say it's on, then it's on.
Yeah.
Join the flip side with the new Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 4. It's packed with amazing features that will have you doing backflips, like FlexCam, which allows you to do hands-free video calling, group shots, selfies, and much more. It's beautifully designed to fit your lifestyle and fit neatly in your pocket when folded. But it's not just beautiful. It performs powerfully and it's flipping strong from the inside out. You've got every reason to join the flip side with the Galaxy Z Flip 4. Available in selected Samsung stores.
Partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi, highs of 24 and lows of 16. It's mostly cloudy at 19 in Nakuru. We'll see highs of 23. We'll see highs of 23 as well in a rainy Nyeri at 17. And rain showers in Eldoret going to highs of 23 and lows of 12. Looking into Mombasa, it's sunny at 29, highs of 32 and lows of 25. And we'll see lows of 26 in a rainy Malindi. 24 and mostly cloudy in Kisumu, highs of 27. And we'll see highs of 26 in Kakamega where it's cloudy at 24. Looking into Kampala, it's raining at 20, highs of 26, and we'll see highs of 32 in a rainy Dar es Salaam as well. The rain is coming down in parts of Johannesburg, highs of 21 and lows of 15, and mostly cloudy conditions in Lagos, going to highs of 32. 31 will be the high in a sunny Kinshasa at 25, and we're looking at 8 degrees Friday evening in Beijing, coming down to lows of -2. It's 0 and cloudy in Paris. That'll be the low for today. It'll go to highs of just 2. And looking out into London, it's also 0, cloudy conditions going to highs of 5 and lows of -2, and 5 degrees in New York Thursday night. Coming into Friday, we'll see highs of 9 and lows of 1.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life.
All right, traffic has not been too crazy today. We're just looking at a little bit of it on Jogo Road going out towards Landis, and then it's going to clog up in the CBD just a little bit here and there. I'm also looking at that whole thing of coming off Muranga Road, Globe, and then Kipande, Kijabe Street. Okay. In the CBD, there's traffic. All right. So just watching out for that. Looking at then the eastern part of the city a little bit on and off as well. We should be getting out of traffic hour in no time, and then you can get your weekend started right. Spice FM KE on Twitter. Talk to us through the morning to keep things moving.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Latif Ndu Oko, CT Muga, and Protest Sinde, the chairman of ICJ Kenya. As we prepare to celebrate Human Rights Day tomorrow, we are talking about the journey that Kenya has made towards the realization of human rights. You're saying, Protest, that yes, a lot more agitation needs to happen on those rights that should be realized by now, where there should be clear direction on where we're going to realize that. Now, many of the people who are in positions of authority are jurists. The Attorney General is a jurist. The Speaker of any of the two houses is a jurist. The Chief Justice is a jurist. People who should be in positions where they are ensuring that these rights are actually being realized. All right? We even have constitutional commissions where many of them, the chairpersons, should be jurists. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights is in office, which has jurists. And then there's ICJ, which is there and it has a whip. What do you do to whip those people who are jurists, who understand your language, towards moving in that direction?
Thank you. Actually, as I said, we draw our membership from across the bench and the bar. So we do have members who are in some of those institutions. And there are times when agitation for those rights, and especially in the era we came from, called for mass action or for protests and demonstrations. There are times when it calls for diplomacy and lobbying. And we have partner institutions. We have partnered with different institutions. We have, depending on the objective that we want to achieve. So we have reached out to some of these institutions. We have reached out to government. There are certain areas we have worked with the government. At times we have worked with judiciary, including even in this last preparation for the general elections. We did quite a bit of training for judiciary in terms of handling electoral dispute resolution, for Access to Information Act. We did lobby Parliament on a number of occasions, and I can tell you, even before that act was passed, there are times when the Parliament would be prorogued, when its term would come to an end, and you find that bill collapses, and then a new lot comes in. So there are times when we would lobby, even lawmakers, depending on what we want to achieve. Other ways we do that is also recognizing outstanding jurists, people who in these institutions have fought for human rights, democratic governance, or rule of law. We recognize them and celebrate them. And our way as ICJ Kenya of celebrating the International Human Rights Day, or the UN Human Rights Day, is by holding an annual Jurist of the Year award ceremony, where we identify through an independent committee, which keeps changing every year, every 2 years for now, which identifies a jurist who has stood out, and on this day, to commemorate the International Human Rights Day, we have an award ceremony. And because the 10th of December falls on Saturday, we usually, if it falls on a day when it's not a working day, we hold it on the day before. So today we are having one such ceremony where we'll award the Jurist of the Year identified for this year by the committee. So that also encourages the different jurists who are able or in a position of influence to do something so that we move the needle, so that we get to achieve the rights that we are agitating for.
So I get that. Spotlighting those that are doing what ought to be done.
Yes.
Should you also not just also at the same time be calling out those that are not? Because I want to put it to you, the biggest impediments to the realization of these rights that you're talking about, that ICJ stands for, are jurists.
Yes.
if you look at Parliament, we haven't achieved this. The Speaker is a jurist. The chairperson of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee in Parliament is a jurist. Senate, same. Attorney General, jurist. Commission on Administration of Justice, jurist. Human Rights Commission, jurist. Director of Public Prosecution, jurist. And all these people, when we talk about not realizing these rights, they're the ones who are sitting in those positions of authority.
That should be realizing the rights.
That should be realizing the rights. So should you not also be calling them out and saying, come on, you've had 8 years, you've had 4 years, you've had 2 years in this office, and we haven't felt you moving towards achieving what we have in the Constitution?
Yes, I agree with you. And at times we do that. And there are times when also when the actions we find are going against the achievement of these objectives of achieving the human rights as we envisage. We have also gone to court or supported public interest litigation to challenge some of the decisions made which are counter the progression or which violate human rights. We have gone to court either directly as ICJ, or we have supported partner organizations or individuals to file such public interest litigation. There are quite a number. I may mention a few arising from the 2007-2008 post-election violence. There was a lot of violence, gender-based violence. And even when everything was settled in terms of the governance aspect, the government, the parties, the actors had reconciled, that aspect was not being addressed. And we found that there was quite a bit of gender-based violence, which was being carried out largely by state actors, apart from other individuals. And there was a case that was filed, a petition that had been there to agitate on rights and asking the government to recognize such things. Even when government fails to act, like in the appointment of judges, who are also involved in probably agitation of that. And there were some court cases, I think ourselves and our partners, we were involved. So yes, we do call them out, and at times we even go to court to seek orders to challenge.
Do you think, or do you feel that Kenyans, citizens, and it doesn't necessarily just have to be Kenya, but citizens, do you feel that they are aware of their rights to comfortable levels, and then to levels comfortable enough to seek a course of action in case these rights are abrogated?
Not really. You will find there's a large majority of Kenyans who are not aware of their rights. Granted, progressively over the years, you find there's a lot more awareness, and this may also be reflected in the more and more people who are seeking court intervention when their rights have been violated. But there's still a part of Kenyans who are not aware and do not know what to do. They may not even know that their right is being violated, but even when they do, they may not know what to do about that. And as ICJ Kenya, on the part of democratic governance and also the economic social justice rights, we do support paralegal networks, and we have a countrywide system where we have paralegals who are empowered to actually reach out to the people in the rural areas who may not have access to maybe formal systems where they may be made aware of their rights. So we have with our partners, we have carry out trainings for these paralegal networks, and they in turn now empower the people at the grassroots. We have also agitated for legal aid. The Legal Aid Act is one of the instruments that we have really pushed for. And there's also the costs of access to justice is something that we also have been at the forefront pushing for a reduction on the access to justice, or making access to justice easier. And on that arm, we have also worked on alternative justice systems, and this one we have worked with the government and the judiciary. There's actually a committee that's for alternative justice systems, of which you are part of, where you try to provide different avenues to ensure that even the person at the grassroots has access to justice in the most basic form.
Remind me again, what exactly is the mandate
Yes.
for ICJ?
ICJ is to ensure that we have a just and equitable society. Yes, and in that, human rights is the forefront.
Okay. 60% of the population of the people who are in jail in our prisons
Yes.
are serving an under 3-year term.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
30% are below, serving a term below 1 year. The majority of these people are there because they do not have access to legal aid. Yes. We have a Legal Aid Act in Kenya which is not funded.
Yes.
We don't have anything that we can refer to as an office of a public defender. Okay. Now, you have mentioned that you have pushed for it, you have lobbied, and yet, if the majority of our people, as we say, live, the vast majority of our people live on a subsistence of something like 6,000 shillings a month, which works to 200 shillings a day, the vast majority, they will not have any excess money to afford legal services. Yet the ICJ exists. So do many other institutions that say they champion the cause of the downtrodden, and these are the downtrodden. Now, the offices that would guarantee that this service is actually available to them isn't funded in this country, and yet we have an act. The Office of the Public Defender, does it exist?
No, we don't have.
Exactly. So, when we are talking about access to justice, which is a fundamental right of the citizens, how then, I'm going to ask a difficult question here, and take it in the spirit in which it's intended. How then can we take associations like yours seriously and other legal institutions in this country when the very service that the downtrodden need is not in existence, and where it's in existence, it doesn't have the requisite funding for it to actually provide the service that is much needed?
Question well taken. I must say that as ICJ Kenya, yes, we stand for that, just equitable society. But there's so much that we can do. Yes. And I can say that in our space, we have done what we can. We are pushing to have more done. And your point on having access to justice to some of the people who may lack that access, and also who may not have proper legal representation, and as for that reason they end up languishing in prison. We have been pushing for that funding, so that even the Legal Aid Act, as it is being implemented, we have an office that can actually be well funded and can address the challenges that are there. But there is also another angle to it, and we have been working on that as well. There is a part of decriminalization of petty offences. That's actually something that ICJ Kenya has been working on for a number of years. And not only in Kenya, but within the region. There's actually a number of countries where we have been working on, because we realize that across the region, you find that there are certain offenses which are petty offenses, but the people who get to suffer on those petty offenses are those marginalized or the poor, the people who may not have a voice or may not have a right. Just because you're poor, you're caught on the wrong side of the law. Maybe you're walking at night outside, you loitering, such offenses. And you find, because you do not have access to maybe proper legal services, or you're not aware of your rights, you end up going to prison. Sometimes you may find that the person is not even aware what it is that they are being arrested for. By the time they say, I do not accept, the wheels of justice move, but they move so slowly. By the time the person is getting to be heard, and maybe they are not even heard properly. So maybe they're imprisoned for something which they have not even understood. And that ends up clogging the prisons, the system. So that is something we have been agitating for. And I know there is quite a bit of progress, and I'm hopeful that in the next 1 or 2 years, we should have quite a number of those offenses decriminalized, so that we don't have people being arrested and jailed for petty offenses.
I'm looking at now these systemic issues. I'm still coming back to the course of action. In the progression, when there's an understanding, hopeful understanding, I mean, it may not be complete at any one time, but it could be that, a right that somebody deals with on a daily basis. And I'm seeing it as that probably you're likely to agitate for the rights that, in the absence of, they affect you. The people who do not eat today, without realizing that that is a right. Can we get to the place whereby there's so much attention that is now set on that particular thing that we almost force the system in this way, the government, to do something about it? I think there's a silent lobbying culture in Kenya, whereby, there will be a move and it will catch the wave at some point, and then maybe you make some steps. But in terms of a loud lobbying culture, whereby it is clear that if this does not happen, the people are standing up tomorrow to say something about it. And I'm really at that point whereby, unfortunately, rights are being tossed out the window, trampled upon day after day, and because it looks as though they're softer rights, and we're not going around and beheading people, but then it has the same effect when you don't feed the population. In terms of doing something about it, or in terms of making the duty bearers, the jurists in these positions, aware that the people for whom these rights ought to be provided, they also know that these things are not being done. They also know that the right environment has not been created. Can we get to that point where it is the people who are taking this responsibility, or even just saying, look, we know that you're not doing this, and we are in a position to essentially remove you? Should you not?
I agree with you. It needs to be louder, and we are partnering with different people. And I there's a celebration of this Human Rights Day. There's a 16 days of activism. I'm sure you have talked about it, and with our partners, probably we'll make sure that these particular issues are also given a voice during this activism, but to continue as well with the work that we are doing, because at the end of the day, we will bring that awareness, and as Ndua said, we'll make it louder, but continue with the work of lobbying, because at the end of the day, there's the bills and the laws that have to be drafted and passed. So we'll make the noise, but at the same time also say, okay, this is what we think should be done. Yeah. We have drafted this. Can you assist us push this and work on that?
Going back to the question that Ndu had asked earlier in terms of awareness on all these rights with the people, for the population, what does ICJ do, maybe working directly with partners, to make sure that everybody understands their rights and how then they can go towards agitating to get their rights respected and realized?
I mentioned earlier, we have this paralegal network, and there's a paralegal society. We actually greatly support them, and I didn't probably go into much detail on what we do with them. We have different regions. We have appointed, or rather work with the paralegal society. We have worked with them to train them, and we have periodical meetings where we just get to strategize, identify the needs which are there on the grassroots. And through this, because we may not all be everywhere at the same time, these groupings create some sort of awareness on the ground. We assist them with the material and the know-how, the knowledge, and they do break it down now, because in the regions they're able to speak to them in the language they understand. They're able to connect with them on a day-to-day basis in terms of what challenges they face, because you'd find different regions have different concerns. So we take our time to engage them on that. More needs to be done, and of course, at the end of the day, subject to funding. We intend to expand that, so that if we can cover the entire country, so that we have an empowered citizen, that will be our joy.
Great.
Yes.
So tonight is when you're holding your Jurist of the Year.
Yes,
awards.
We have Jurist of the Year awards tonight, and this one will celebrate the jurist who has stood out in terms of promoting human rights and defending the democratic space. Yes.
We look forward to hosting that winner coming in the coming weeks.
Yes.
To hear
Yes.
what they've done. Thank you very
Yes.
much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
And come again soon.
Certainly.
Protestant Chairperson ICJ Kenya has been our guest today. And thank you very much for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation this entire week. We'll be back on Monday, Jamhuri Day. Us guys are not going to be away for a couple of days. We'll be here. Have a lovely weekend, people. It's 10 a.m.
Spice up your life